You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
You may not be able to handle the truth, but these guys can. Welcome to the Long for Truth Show.
Heretic hunters.
Hey, what do you think of these guys?
I think they're damned and on their way to hell, and I don't think there's any redemption for them.
You stink, frankly. That's the way I think about it.
Hello and welcome to the Long for Truth Show. My name is Dan Long, and we're going to be talking about some changes that we're doing to the podcast, and we're going to be starting a new format. And I'll tell you all about it in just a moment. All right, so as I said, we are going to be doing some changes, making some changes here on the podcast. As you know, it's been really difficult for Steve and I to be consistent over the past year or so with the podcast. It's been really tough because of our schedules. And before that, now if you look on the Spreaker page, or if you look on the iTunes page, whatever you do, however you download the podcast, if you'll see, most of you who listen to us know anyway, that we've done well over 100 episodes. And in the beginning, we were putting up at least one episode a week, and that over the past year has changed, again, because of our schedules. And you know, it really does take a lot of work and a lot of time to put a podcast episode together. Anybody who records podcasts, who does podcasting, knows exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, there's research for the topic that you want to talk about that's really involved. There is the time it takes to record. There is the post-production, you know, the editing and things like that, the uploading, all that other stuff. I mean, it takes time. Now, sometimes what I would do is I would record one day and then do the editing and posting the next day, but I just don't have that kind of time anymore. As I said, schedules are just so demanding these days that I just can't seem to find the time to be as consistent as I'd like to be. I've been more consistent with a blog than I have with a podcast. You can check out our blog at longfortruth.blogspot.com. But yeah, I've been more consistent with the blog than I have with the podcast, and that's a shame because in the past, Steve was the one who was writing all the blog posts, and then I was the one that was doing most of the episodes for the podcast, and now I'm not hardly doing any of the episodes, and Steve and I together are both pretty much equally writing for the blog, but we've decided to make some changes, to try something a little bit different. And this is a trial. You know, we'll make mistakes as we go along, but this is a trial podcast episode. Okay, we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to try this for a few weeks to see if I can be a little bit more consistent and try to continue, even though I only have one day a week. And I literally, folks, I have one day a week to work on either the blog or the podcast, and there are days when and that day, by the way, is Sunday, because I'm working 6 days a week. But there are days, Sundays, where I just say, you know, I got to catch up on some reading, and so I'll read, or I'll just taking a nap, falling asleep after church or something like that, because I'm just whooped. But we have literally one day a week to make this happen, and so I'm racking my brain trying to think of what to do. You know, what can we do to continue to be consistent? Because we want to continue to do the podcast. We don't want to just push the podcast aside. There are so many people that I know of who have started podcasting and maybe done 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, or even as many as 10 episodes, and they just kind of quit. Well, I mean, you can look at our page, our iTunes page, or our Spreaker page, and you can see that we've done over 100 episodes. We've been very serious about the podcast. It's just been really tough over the past year or so for us to be consistent in posting a podcast once a week. But we're going to try it again. You fall off the horse, you get right back on it again, and that's what we're going to try to do with our podcast here. We're going to try to once again put up a podcast once a week. And so in order to do that, we've kind of decided to change how we do the podcast. Normally, what Steve or I would do, or Steve and I both, when we would do a podcast together, we would choose a topic, maybe we'd review a sermon, or maybe we'd review a book or something like that. And we'd spend the entire episode, usually about an hour long. Sometimes it ranged between 30 minutes to an hour, but most of the time the episodes are an hour long, or close to an hour anyway. We've even had some that has been almost 2 hours long. So, we got some flexibility there. But we would take one topic and we would talk about, that topic for the entire episode, the entire hour or hour and a half, or however long we decided to do the podcast. And so, that was rough because, I mean, you got to spend a lot of time researching, and especially if you're doing a sermon review, you got to listen to the sermon, you got to stop, you got to make notes. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do. Now, I'm not saying that the way we're going to be doing things now is going to be, that we're going to be skimping any research or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, the way we're going to change things, it's going to just make it easier to be more consistent, I think. So here's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be starting that today. We're going to break up the podcast into 3, maybe 4. Today it'll be 4 segments, and we're going to spend about 10 minutes, give or take, 10 minutes or so on each segment. And we're going to see how that works. Doing that, because it's easier for me to research that way, because I can take different blog articles and different sound bites and things like that, and I can, and I can just take a few minutes to talk about each. I'm not spending this entire chunk of time on one long topic. So I think less time spent preparing and more time to be able to be consistent and do the podcast. So all of that introduction is over. And so today is the day that we are going to start this whole new format. And let me tell you exactly what we're going to do. We're going to have 4 segments today. Now, I had mentioned, I wrote a blog post yesterday and put that up, and mentioned in the blog post that there were going to be 4 10-minute segments, but more than likely they won't meet that 10-minute mark, especially the first one we're going to do. Some of them are going to be more like 5 minutes. The last segment that we're going to do today could be as long as 15 to 20 minutes, because I really want to get that one. I want to give that one the full treatment. So we're going to have 4 segments today. We're going to be doing a segment called Tweets Gone Bad, where we look at a particular tweet by either a Word of Faith pastor, a prosperity pastor, a seeker-friendly pastor, or even just a Christian that just posts a ridiculous tweet. So we'll be looking at that. And by the way, I got to give credit where credit is due. That is not my... I got that idea, I should say, from another podcast. I got that idea from 2 Lutheran pastors who do a podcast called Boars in the Vineyard. And they have a segment on their podcast called Good Tweet, Bad Tweet. And I thought, well, that's really good. I might do something similar to that on our podcast. So and so we're going to be doing that. Then we're going to be looking at some charismatic news. We're going to see who made Charismaniac of the Week. And I've got a particular article that I think is just going to blow your mind, because we have a woman pastor, a woman charismatic pastor from Nigeria who made the Charismaniac of the Week. From there, our third segment, we're going to be looking at what I would call, I'm going to be calling this segment Word of Faith Sorcery. We're going to be looking at something, we're going to be looking at different Word of Faith teachers, because basically Word of Faith and the prosperity gospel is nothing more than sorcery. It's not Christianity at all. And so we're going to be looking today on that segment at something Mike Murdock does. Mike Murdock, who is a Word of Faith prosperity gospel preacher, teacher, televangelist, whatever you want to call him, turns faith into law. And it's only a 2-minute program that he has. Well, actually, I take that back. It can be as long, anywhere from 2 to 7 minutes. I mean, this particular episode that he did for his podcast was 2 minutes. So we're going to be looking at that. And then, finally, the fourth segment that we're going to be doing is a segment called Blog Article of the Week, or blog of the week, blog article pick of the week, whatever you want to call them. These names are not set in stone, folks, by the way. If you've got better ideas for naming these segments, shoot me an email. You can shoot us an email at longfortruth@gmail.com, or you can even go on our blog or on our Facebook page, and you can interact with us there. But give us your ideas, what you think. But that is what we are going to be doing. So let's start out with the segment that I'm calling Tweets Gone Bad.
If you don't tweet, you better tweet about me. If you don't tweet, you better tweet about me. If you don't tweet, y'all, you better tweet about me. If you don't tweet, you better tweet about me. Hey! That funky Big Sam, funky Big Sam, funky Big Sam, funky Big Sam. If you don't tweet, you better tweet about me. When you're home alone, you better tweet about. Hey! There it go.
All right, there we go. The intro music for, I don't know. All I did for that music, I'll tell you how I found it. All I did for that music is I went on to iTunes and I just typed in Twitter or Twitter music, and I came up with that. So that's where that came from. Anyway, this is a tweet that was posted yesterday, I believe, by the Bishop T.D. Jakes. T.D. Jakes is, of course, having his upcoming, they call it an experience. They actually say it's more than a festival, it's an experience. The Woman Thou Art Loosed conference. So, Woman Thou Art Loosed, and he's got he's got his poster up there, and he's got all of the speakers that are going to be there, and it's just going to be such a wonderful event. Two speakers that I particularly wanted to highlight that's going to be speaking at T.D. Jakes Church is Joyce Meyer and Christine Kane. And the reason why I want to bring these two ladies up is because, well, T.D. Jakes, of course, as you know, is a modalist, which means that he does not believe in the doctrine of the Trinity. He's a modalist. He believes that the persons of the Trinity represent only three modes or aspects of God. They're not distinct. The persons are not distinct, and they're not coexisting. They're not co-eternal, according to a modalist. A modalist believes that there are three modes or aspects to God. So at one time he's Jesus Christ, another time he can be the Father, another time he can be the Holy Spirit. Well, what the Trinity teaches is that there is one God, and within that one God, or that one being called God, I should say, there exists co-equally and co-eternally three persons. So within the one God, there are three persons, namely the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is what we believe about the Trinity. And T.D. Jakes is not even close to that. He is a person that has denied the Trinity. And so he has got two women that, at least on their websites,